Bonjour! Have you ever struggled to hear the number of, for example, a time or a date when you're phoning to make an appointment or when you're speaking to somebody in real life? That's because numbers in French can make liaisons. They can change a little bit depending on what the word is that comes after that number. We're going to look at that today. Numbers in French are notoriously difficult, not just those big numbers after you get past 69, but also the little numbers because they change in sound depending on the word that comes next. So I'm going to teach you the 2 rules that you need to bear in mind when you're thinking about listening for numbers. So much of the reason we find it difficult to understand French as English speakers is because of these liaisons that make the language sound beautiful and flowing. And as long as we can understand those rules, we've got a bit more of a chance of being able to unpick it and stop it from sounding like one long thing. So first of all, the first rule to know, with certain numbers, when they are followed by a word starting with a consonant, they lose their last sound. If you were going to say the number 4 in French, you would say quatre or quatre. If you were going to say the number 5, you'd say cinq. If you were going to say the number 6, you'd say six. If you were going to say the number 8, you'd say huit. If you were going to say the number 10, you'd say dix. Now, that is exactly how you say that number. However, when there is a word starting with a consonant that comes next, for example, the word 100 in French is cent, we're going to get rid of the last sound on those numbers. So if it was 400, we were going to say, rather than saying 400, there's a bit of a there, 400, there's a gap in it. French don't like that. The French language doesn't flow. So instead, we knock off that r sound and we say 400, 400, 400. Cinq. If I was going to say 5,000, I would have thought it would be 5,000, but there's too much of a little stop there, so we say 5,000, 5,000. 6 days, 6 jours, doesn't sound very nice. Get rid of the last sound, which is a kind of S sound, and make it 6 jours, 6 jours. 8 months would be 8 mois, 8 mois. There's that gap again. We don't want that, so we're going to say 8 mois, 8 mois, 8 months, 8 mois. Get rid of that T sound. And then 10, we would be saying 10 fois, 10 times. Look at last week's video if you're not sure about this word. 10 fois is what it's going to sound like. 10 fois, that sort of S sound on the end that we say when we say the number by itself. 10 disappears. 10 fois, 10 times. And here's the second rule. What about when the word is starting with a vowel? Well, some different numbers here that make different sounds. So the numbers that end in X make these different sounds. So deux, that X changes to a Z sound to make a nice liaison with the word starting with a vowel next to it. So if I was going to say 2 years, I would say deux ans, deux ans. So it's all flowing into it, deux ans. The number 3, this S turns into a Z sound for the same reason. So if I'm going to say 3 children, I would say trois enfants, trois enfants. Six, if I was going to say 6 friends, six amis, it's a bit difficult to say. So instead, that sort of a S, soft S turns into a Z sound. Six amis. 6 amis, 6 friends. So 9 would be neuf, neuf, with this soft F sound when you say just 9 by itself. But when you say it with a vowel afterwards, like animaux, if you want to say 9 animals, that F sound changes to a harder V sound. So it sounds like neuf animaux, neuf ans, neuf enfants, neuf heures. Tiny little exception, there's a grey area with the word ami. Sometimes you hear neuf amis rather than neuf amis, but how often we're going to need to say 9 friends, I don't know. And the last one is 10. So 10 is that 10, it's got that soft S sound, but when it's followed by a vowel, and remember the word that I've got as an example here as well, even though there's an H at the beginning, the H basically is a ghost letter in French. It doesn't really exist. We certainly don't say it. We look at the letter next to it to help us to know our pronunciation. So 10 heures changes to 10 heures, 10 heures, and it makes that flowing sound, 10 heures. This is why it's tricky with times, because 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 12 o'clock sound really, really similar. 2 o'clock is 2 heures, 10 o'clock is 10 heures, and 12 o'clock is 12 heures. So you have to really pay attention to the vowel sound there. 2 heures, 10, it's got the I sound in it, 10 heures, and 12, 12 heures has got the U, so I, U. That's what we need to hear for the number there. And 6 and 10, you'll notice, appear in both lists. So we can compare these. 10 jours, but we would pronounce this one 10 ans. So the 10 jours, because that's starting with a consonant, we don't pronounce that letter. And the 10 ans, we're making liaison with a Z sound when it's a vowel coming next. 6, here we go. So 6 months, we're going to say 6 mois, so it's starting with a consonant. The last sound gets lost. And here, starting with a vowel sound, it's going to make the liaison, so it's going to sound like 6 heures, 6 heures. Let's practice these together then. So you're going to have a go at saying it out loud, and then I'm going to say it. Pause me if you need a little second to think, and then press play again and I'll give you the answer. Okay, so 6 dogs. How are you going to say that one? 6 chiens. 6 chiens. We've got a consonant coming next to it. What about this one? 4 neighbours. 4 neighbours. Are we looking at a vowel or a consonant? Does that mean that anything needs to change here? Yes, it does. We've got a consonant, and 4 doesn't stay 4 anymore. It goes to 4 voisins. 4 voisins. 3 grandchildren. 3 grandchildren. Is this a consonant or is this a vowel? Therefore, do we need to make any changes? 3 petits enfants. We don't need to worry about that because we've got a consonant next. If it had been 3 children, not 3 grandchildren, we would have had to have made a liaison because children, enfant, starts with a vowel. Next one. 8 months is going to say 8 mois. We're dropping that T because of that consonant. What about here now? 2 friends. Is it a vowel? Is it a consonant? Therefore, we're going to say 2 amis. 2 amis. 10 cats. 10 chats. 10 chats. It's a consonant and we need to make it all flow nicely together. 10 chats. It's too difficult to say. 9 euros. 9 euros. 9 euros. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. There's our consonant and we don't pronounce the Q. 3 oranges. 3 oranges. 3 oranges. Making that Z liaison with the O. 8 days. 8 jours. 8 jours. 6 neighbours. 6 voisins. 6 voisins. And 10 o'clock. I know it looks like a consonant, but remember the H doesn't behave like a consonant in French. It behaves like a vowel. So it's got to be 10 heures. 10 heures. We're making that liaison. Make sure you try and listen to some numbers and see if you can spot this now. See if you can hear this. Because it's something that we have to do. We have to make these liaisons. They're not optional like some liaisons. These liaisons are obligatory. But it's particularly in listening that this knowledge is going to be really helpful for you. because you'll be able to pick out the numbers much more easily. Okay, see you next time. Au revoir.